everyone, and welcome to Answer the Call. Today's video is the state of Star Citizen with Morphologis. So if you guys don't know Morphologis, I found him on YouTube. He is also streaming on Twitch under the tags Morphologis. And yeah, he popped in my channel pretty recently in the last like month or two, or months actually. Time flies with Star Citizen. And we kind of started talking, and I think we have like a really nice relationship. And I would have liked to bring him on and talk to him and just get his points of view on Star Citizen. I think they're really well grounded and really well thought out. So I'd like to just kind of hang out, have a conversation with him, and then open up calls at the end of the video to kind of have you guys ask questions and talk to him and see what you have to say about the state of Star Citizen, I guess, as well. So we're going to go ahead and bring on Morphologist now. So Morph, welcome. How you doing? You've been on the show before, but not in this capacity, I guess.
No, I called in as a caller, as a lurker.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start out with for people who may not know who you are, which if you don't, I'd be pretty surprised. But just in case there's a couple people, who are you? What do you do? And maybe give your background on like where you've come from and how you found Star Citizen.
So my name is, well, I go by the name Morphologist, obviously, that's my real name. I am a YouTuber, and recently I started streaming a bit more on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
I am, in the real world, an architect, and I have been for quite some time. And so I have a bit of a different perspective on things like the creative process. But I have been around YouTube for a fairly long time now. Actually, I just checked to see how long my YouTube's been up for. I'm actually about 7 years old now on YouTube, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
But I haven't actually been like really working on YouTube. So I started like really working hard about 5 years ago on doing YouTube content. So I started covering Space Engineers first, and then a bunch of other science fiction games, and then somehow something about Star Citizen caught my eye, and I really wanted to check out the project. And believe it or not, I heard about both of them when they were announced. I remember this.
Me too.
It was when I say both of them, I'm also saying Elite Dangerous, because for a time people were looking at both of these projects like, oh, which one's going to be the project to follow?
Yeah.
And strangely enough, I backed Elite Dangerous. I did back Star Citizen at first.
Well, Star Citizen, it was very weird and uncomfortable. I played Chris Roberts games as a kid. And I played Ultima Online, which was also a Chris Roberts project. And I found, well, he wasn't the head, but he worked on it. And I found out about the Kickstarter through a Ultima Online forum. And it was really dicey. I mean, Kickstarter wasn't as popular as it is now. And Chris hadn't made games in forever. I didn't know what was going on. So, like, I waited a while before I backed. So I get it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I did the same thing. I didn't back until after the after the PU is finally released. Like, we actually had a universe to play around in. Yeah. So I came in and the time I remember best is about 2 years ago when we were in 2.6, which was probably the worst period to get into Star Citizen.
Yes, it was. 2.6 was like one of the worst.
Yeah, they were still figuring stuff out. But at the same time, now that it's been so long ago, and we are where we are now, it's also given me another perspective on Star Citizen that I think people who are coming into the project now, or even at 3.0, probably don't have. So,
yeah. So you started with Space Engineers, and did you make mostly videos with Space Engineers? And what were you doing when you made videos with them? Did you have any like sort of format similar to what we see from Star Citizen today with you?
So I don't know what it is, but I've always kind of like really enjoyed doing instruction videos. So I started up doing Space Engineers with like really thorough tutorials where I would make like these elaborate graphs, not just like graphs, but like diagrams. I'd make diagrams on how to figure out all the tools in that game. So I appreciated the complexity of the game. Space Engineers has like this ability to build like mechanical devices and design really cool ships and stuff, and that's why I still play actually today, just not as much on my YouTube channel. But I think what really drew me to Star Citizen eventually was just how detailed the game was, and probably my background. Like when I was a kid, I played a lot of Star Wars Galaxies, and that to me was one of the best MMOs, the most detailed MMOs ever made for the science fiction genre. Let's be clear. I know World of Warcraft exists. I'm just saying I'm a science fiction guy. So
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, did I answer the question?
Yeah, you did. And I guess, well, since you made more tutorial style videos, you do make some stuff for that for Star Citizen now, but like obviously you've kind of grown from this architect reviews series and gotten like people really love that, and that's what you're known for in the Star Citizen community, I would say.
Yeah.
Do you plan on doing
actually,
more stuff like that with Star Citizen in the future? It's a little difficult to do right now.
It's a little bit difficult to do, and we could talk about that for a brief sec, because I get a lot of these questions like, why don't you review this or that ship? So the thing of it is I really enjoy doing those videos. They're probably my favorite to do, and in fact, the 890 jump video broke all my records for YouTube since I've started doing YouTube. The amount of views, the viewer retention, the amount of subscribers, I think that video pulled in like 3,000 subscribers.
Wow. So it's like my subscriber count.
So it's a ridiculous amount of attention that video has gotten. And a really cool thing about that particular video is that a lot of those views are coming from people who don't even know what Star Citizen is. They don't even care what Star Citizen is. They're just browsing and they see this amazing looking yacht thing. They're like, I want to know what that is. It's a big, cool looking boat. So from that perspective, you know, aside from the fact that I can use my professional abilities, I think it's also cool to appeal to a wider audience, because ultimately what I like to do with my architecture videos is use Star Citizen as a device to teach people about design and architecture and the design process.
That's actually really cool.
So I'm definitely, so yeah, I this isn't a new concept. In fact, once my firm found out that I was doing this, believe it or not, they didn't freak out. They weren't like, what are you doing? You need to stop. The principal of the firm was like, hey, we should start a YouTube channel called We Were Black. It's not up yet, so don't look for it. We're still working on it. We're going to put together a bunch of videos, but he wants to do exactly that, but more in an official capacity, talking about some of the more serious issues facing architecture, like why is public space so poorly treated in the country that it's Taiwan, for example, or just in general. But I think that is where I see an architect reviews is when you're watching that and when you're entertained, what you're actually doing is you're learning about design, and hopefully by result, you know, we get better projects built in the world. We don't get those ugly towers, and we don't get those everybody having this opinion of architects that were just these people who design these horrible looking structures that everyone hates, because that unfortunately is the case for a lot of the comments that I've read. People have this completely different idea of what architects are, what they do. So I think it's nice to pull a little bit of the veil back and connect a little bit with the general public. So I'll definitely do more. The reason why I haven't done a lot of them is actually because it takes so much time. This 890 jump video is 35 minutes long. I had collected probably days of footage. I cut it down to the best I could of 45 minutes, and I still had to cut it down.
Yeah.
So the whole week recording, re-recording, reshooting, getting pickup shots. Yeah, the whole
Star Citizen doesn't make it easy to record.
No, it doesn't make it easy
to do anything, really.
It doesn't.
It's tough. Yeah. So like anytime you're trying to, like when you watch a YouTube channel and they have like the level of in-game B-roll that you have and some other people are doing, you really have to understand the amount of hours that somebody's putting in to get that in there, just so you have something nice to look at while they're talking, right? It's pretty wild. Like I remember one of my videos that has done relatively well is how to make money in Star Citizen 3.4. Still getting views now, because people
that's like,
I need to update
that's a big
it.
Subject people want to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you should.
It's just the answer right now is, and it's kind of on topic with what the topic of the show is today, is nothing would be the answer. So that's why I haven't made it, right? Because a lot of stuff is just broken. So I don't want to like pop in a video and make up stuff that doesn't exist, right? So it's kind of it's been tough the last few patches, but with the advent of the staggered development, I hope that changes and I can make those videos again. But yeah, I mean that's the thing is I'm looking forward to if you make videos like that as well in the future. Is I want to see. I'm curious, and I want to see more from you, I guess, on the tutorial end of things too, because just the way you speak and the way you put together your videos, I think it's going to be really beneficial for the community. I don't
You're
know.
cutting out a little bit.
Am I?
It just yeah, I lost it. I think you're clipping. I don't know if it's your Discord setting or something, but I'm losing you when you get a little bit quieter completely. Like I don't hear anything.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm talking just too far away from the mic. Is that better?
That's a little better, yeah.
A little better?
But
Yikes.
Yeah, I understood what you were saying though. I picked up what you were putting down.
All right.
Just cut off like a second at the end. So I mean, yeah, I want to do more stuff like that. I mean, as an architect, I have a bit more of an analytical approach to things. That's kind of what we do. We analyze the world around us and we try to interpret them and put them into a physical thing for our client. And it's something I really enjoy doing. And so it kind of translates to a lot of different things. It's not just about building buildings. And actually, I was having this big conversation on Spectrum in the concierge section. There was somebody who made a post of my video. I don't know if you watched it, but there was one guy who was like, "What is this guy? Who is he? What does an architect know about all this sort of stuff? Does he doesn't design spaceships?" And I typed out this very elaborate response, but the gist of it is that architects don't design buildings; they design spaces, and the building is the result of it. So the building is built around the space that you're designing for the human being.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think of that from that perspective, then a lot of different things can be architecture. It can go from jewelry, and I just went to an exhibition today. There's this architect who works in California, who's been doing the beautiful parametric design jewelry that she applies now to like buildings, and she's got a number of projects. So we like in the real world, we actually do a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like I love doing videos. I think it's a chance to explore a different way of looking at things, and analyzing is definitely is a skill that takes practice, and you want to keep up with it. Be critical about what you're looking at, and it doesn't matter what subject you're being analytical of. That skill of being analytical really applies to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. I guess let's jump into the stars, like the actual game. And we talked a little bit about it last week when you called in, but we're with the most recent events and things have come out with this week's Star Citizen Live a little bit more, so we get a little bit more information on what's going on. Where are you at with Star Citizen? What do you feel about it right now? And how do you feel about it in the near future? I would say up to 3.9, because 4.0 is kind of tough to gauge right now.
Well, I just did a video on 3.7.
Yes.
And I don't do update videos, generally speaking. And I don't think that's supposed to. I'm not really trying to like branch out and take over other people's segments of YouTube. I kind of have a nice niche going right now of analytical videos. The reason I did it though is because I'm actually really excited for the changes in the roadmap.
Yeah.
I think that they've done a really good job of refocusing on some very important things, namely looking at how to add a bit more progression into the game. So that things like mining specifically aren't locked behind a very expensive ship.
Yes.
Especially considering right now we don't have persistence between patches. So saving up to buy that ship isn't very practical for a lot of people, and it's extremely deflating to know that after not even 3 months at this point, it's now gotten to the point where it's like a month and a half to 2 months, your stuff gets wiped. So yeah, that we really need something to get people to kind of be able to experience these different things that they've worked actually really hard to do. Like the mining mechanics are really cool, but nobody can really experience it unless you buy that $155 ship, right?
Yeah.
So I think the refocus is a good idea. I'm a little disappointed though. It looks like salvaging got bumped from 3.8 to 4.0, which I really wish they wouldn't have done, but I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe there's some big reason behind it.
Well, they did actually give an update. I can't show it on because it's the screen, because I unfortunately have to use window capture, but so it would cover your face. But they did give some reasoning behind it, that they took the team off of salvaging to work on other things in the roadmap, and now they're doing these weekly update with when the roadmap changes, they give an explanation as to why. So one of the community managers will be doing it this week. Tyler Rickton did it, and yeah. So I off the top of my head, I don't really want to say it because I don't know for 100% certain, but they listed a number of things as to what that team will be working on leading up to salvage, and all of that work will lead up to salvage. For example, FPS mining will help them work on salvage, which should be pretty cool. So it sort of makes sense. Obviously, it's disappointing. We would like another career in the game, but
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather a really nicely fleshed out career that hopefully differs a bit from mining. Like, what do you like? You're excited for salvage. What are your expectations from it at first? I guess when it first comes in, what do you think it'll be? They sort of explained it slightly, but what are you excited about with it?
So what I was a little concerned about was, and I was just thinking on this last night, funnily enough, is that if they're going to do the mining mechanic where you're pointing this laser beam to get rocks out and it goes into your backpack, if they make salvaging essentially the same thing except you're pointing it at a shipwreck and you're getting metal in your backpack,
Yeah,
that'd be really disappointing.
yeah.
So I guess what I'm hoping to see out of it is, you know, can can we take actual modules? Can we take actual weapons? And if so, you know, how does that work? What I'd like to see maybe is that smaller ones can be handled by hand.
Hmm.
You can actually grab them after cutting them off with the multi-tool. I'd love to see something like that.
Yeah,
Just simple, like it's just attached to the thing, and then once you hit your laser on, it just pops off and you grab it, right? Not anything very
simple.
complicated, like showing melting metal. Just you'd be able to cut it off.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be overcomplicated, but
but this is
just
Star
being able to do
Citizen,
that, I think
more.
would be very cool. Yeah, I
You're
know,
gonna
and
have
I
to
bet they're gonna make the
the
melting metal and
temperature.
stuff. It's
You have to know what kind of metal it is and its melting point, and then you'll have to adjust your tool in order to do it. You know?
and otherwise it'll explode on you, I'm sure.
Yeah. I saw a question in chat, and I'm gonna scroll up and look for it, and I think this is really relevant. So, uh,
Maybe we can do the ISC format, and that we can say if you're going to ask a question, you just put a bracket question so that we can
yes, it makes it a
differentiate
little bit
stuff.
easier to find. This one I did
Yeah.
find though. So yeah, definitely do that, and I guess I'll take some questions from chat. That'll be a little simpler, but I'd love for you guys to also want to call in. But this one I think is good to ask you in the context of what we're talking about now. Obviously the game's still in development, and coming from your point of view and your expertise, this comes from IDDKFA, who calls in quite often as well. Um,
Hmm.
do you think 3D designers at CIG need architectural knowledge, and if so, to what extent?
Okay, so this is an interesting subject. The thing is that there's only a little bit of crossover. No, there's a big crossover in the design section of 3D design,
Hmm.
and that's the understanding of how the user moves through space.
Yeah.
So what I mean is that whether it's your actual body or your virtual body, you're still experiencing the space through a particular point of view. And so things like spatial compression are going to apply regardless of if the space is virtual or not, especially if we're working with a VR thing, which we're not right now with SC, but
Hmm.
it's another subject. So I think if they can have an understanding, and if it's not taught, I'm not familiar with what's taught in game design, but if they can have an understanding of the human scale, human preferences, and subconscious subconscious things that affect emotion, I think that would be only beneficial. For example, the color of lighting can heavily affect your feeling towards a specific scene or an area. For example, if the color of the light is very warm, so be yellow, that'd be around 3000 K. It kind of communicates that this is a more domestic, intimate space for relaxation. So that's where you'd want to have like a nice place to sit, a nice sleeping place, or a nice table. That's the sort of light you'd use.
Hmm.
But if you're in a working area, then you'd want to have like a 5000 K light, which is very, very bright and almost bluish. And that actually has shown psychologically to make people more efficient. So if you understand these sorts of things, they definitely do apply to the virtual world.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think it can only be beneficial. And things like design language, they understand all this stuff though. Like I'm looking at the 890 jump, and I can see all of these skills that are translating. I'm not convinced that they use an architect to consult, like some people are saying. I think that they just understand design language. Either they were taught it or they understand it instinctually as designers. Um, so yeah, now in terms of just like architect, like phrased as architect knowledge, there's certain things that are completely irrelevant. For example, code, structure to some extent.
Yeah.
That's stuff that they don't need to know, right? That'd be a complete waste of time for them. But all the other things that we use have at our disposal would definitely be useful. Hope
Now,
that answers that question.
sure, and you tend to go from the view of spaceships, right? So, have you ever done an architect reviews? And I think you did, but I can't remember. I have the worst memory ever of like Hurston.
I did.
Okay,
I did an architect reviews the Lorville Business District.
okay. So, what are your thoughts about the way they've laid out their cities and the
So,
amount of movement and placement of things, and maybe the materials, stuff like that?
so there's it's an interesting question. I like I like this sort of question actually.
Yeah.
They've got some very important restrictions on them right now, which I think is inhibiting their creative freedom.
Okay.
And obviously, this is actually very true in the real world too. It's just a different sort of budget. They've got a budget, and the budget is not just time and expense to the people developing the contents to put into the city, but also actual very important RAM and GPU CPU budget. So they can't, for example, have a really long alleyway leading up to a important building because they'd be rendering too much stuff at once and no computer could run it. Or at least they haven't gotten to the point where they've made the code efficient enough to be able to run it. So from that perspective, I think that they could improve, but all of the things that I would say that I'd love to see would be more so things that they can't do at the moment because of the restrictions of the engine. I
Okay.
think, for example, ArtCorp is has some problems in the fact that you're in this expansive city, but you can't really experience that very. And this is really funny because Anton pointed this out without me even saying anything.
Yeah.
We landed on a pad in Area 17, which has got all these paths you can land on. You could see the entire city. It's like, wow, this is amazing. It's like I can really experience the scale of this place. It's like, yeah, that's that's unfortunate that
Sort
you
of.
had to experience it here and not in ArtCorp.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that there are some improvements that can be made. Now on Hurston itself, I like that they've established a tone in a
Okay.
language of design for specific areas. So if Hurston's like this dirty industrial place with a lot of like bare metals and yellows, and I think it works. I think it's really really cool. Is it beautiful? No, but it doesn't have to be because design sometimes is just about trying to convey some sort of emotional feeling about the space. So I think it's really successful in that sense. It feels
Okay.
very oppressive.
I agree with you there. One of the things that disappoints me a lot about both Hurston and ArtCorp, and I feel like from what I've seen on the updates of Microtech, they may be addressing this, is they do have some long corridors and hallways that don't necessarily make much sense to me. And that's kind of where I was trying to ask that question. I got a really different and interesting answer instead, which was cool. But that's kind of where I was going with that. Is one of the things that I was more disappointed with was there seems to be these hallways that don't make any sense. And I was wondering if, like, from your perspective, do you notice them? And do you come from a different point of view? And what do you see when you walk around Hurston and it kind of takes a while and there's just not, it doesn't seem like there's any function to it.
Right. I think that there's a big problem with wayfinding and just understanding what the spatial organization is, but I'm a little bit torn and reluctant to analyze it too harshly because I think what they're trying to
It was their
do
first.
is work with, yeah, I think they're trying to work within a budget. And what I
Okay.
mean by that is they've got all these weird hallways doing all these weird things because it's hard to understand the space, and that might be the point. And the point might be they want to make it feel bigger than it is because in reality it's not very big. So if they had this like big open area, they may just max out their budget, and then it's very disappointing because you can see everything at once.
Yeah.
In terms of like the hallways doing these weird things, I think those are just like leftover problems from this core issue of being very limited with what the engine can currently do at this time.
Fair enough.
For the city, because ultimately what I'd like to see is like alleyways that make sense, roads that make sense, and wayfinding that makes sense. Wayfinding, what I mean is by that is you should be able to navigate the space without too much difficulty, without having to rely on signs. Things should just feel natural in terms of where you should go, depending on what you want to do. You know, you
Yeah.
should know naturally, where do I go to get to find the seedy alleyway guy to buy some seedy stuff. Where do I go to the main administration building? Like the administration section right now is just so off to the side
Yeah.
that
Especially in Hurston.
unless you look for this, yeah, in Hurston, you wouldn't even know where it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of issues in that place. But like I said, unless I were able to sit down with them and talk through with them about these issues to figure out what exactly is limiting them, I can't make an evaluation. Now, if they
That's
did
fair.
that and they don't have any budget issues, then I would say, yeah, there's a huge mistake here. They definitely there's some problems.
Yeah.
But
Like I remember walking through it
otherwise,
the
yeah.
first time and I was just like, what is this? But now when it comes from that perspective, it makes a lot more sense to me that, oh, they need these hallways to not have so many like entities on the screen. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
interesting.
because what I'd really like to see eventually is our spaces that really have very distinct tones and that can express things like the scale of ArtCorp or the oppressiveness of Hurston
Hmm.
successfully.
Okay.
Which I think it's doing well, but it still needs some polish
Yeah.
and development to get it like perfect for sure. It's not that ideal experience, you know.
Yeah. I guess another question I would ask you is when you do play Star Citizen, not when you're making
Mhm.
content, what do you do?
When I play Star Citizen, oh gosh, those two have become intermingled at this point. To
Yeah.
be honest, man, seeing as how this isn't my full-time job, my
Hmm.
full-time job is architecture. What ends up happening is that every moment I have to play a game, I think of how I can use that time to create more content. That's not to say I don't
Yeah.
sit down and actually just enjoy playing Star Citizen. Point is that's far and few between. When I do sit down and play Star Citizen, I generally do things that people might not find very interesting, like flying around and looking at very beautiful scenery, or or just kind of looking around some of the like the cities and stuff. You know,
Okay.
I like flying around ArcCorp and flying between the buildings and kind of letting my imagination go a little bit wild with what I'd like to see in the future, that sort of thing.
All right.
But I don't really do any of the box missions or anything. Like, there's not really, let's be honest, there's not really a very compelling gameplay loop at the moment. So,
No, not at all. And I think that's why I end up getting so upset all the time. Is
yeah,
I want there to be so bad that I try and create it in my head or something, and then I go out there thinking that it's going to be there, and then it never is, and it's just like, what are you doing, man? You know?
yeah.
What you obviously mentioned Space Engineers. Do you play any other games on your
Aside
own?
from those,
Yeah.
oh geez,
I mean, you probably don't have a ton of time, but
yeah, I don't have a ton of time, but if I don't have time to do a video and I know I can't get it done at the night and I don't even want to get started because I'm exhausted, I'll just hop into a mindless game like Overwatch.
okay.
And I don't say that's mindless because I know people play professionally. I'm usually like, I just go in there, shoot stuff, you know, just
Yeah.
relax and decompress for the day. But yeah, nothing like really significant that I was like, oh gosh, you guys got to check this thing out. Aside from Space Engineers, which you guys should check out. It's pretty cool.
I guess so. You play FPS games.
Yeah, I play FPS games because back when I was in high school, I played a ton of Counter Strike 1.6. But I guess
Okay.
who didn't at that time. So
Play a lot of Tarkov.
yeah,
You
I do
excited?
play a lot of Tarkov. I love Tarkov. I think for me when I started playing Tarkov, I started seeing how things in Star Citizen could be so easily turned into a Tarkov like gameplay loop experience.
Yes.
Like if we had areas where we could funnel the very limited amount of people in the game to like a station with very expensive stuff that you can grab out, like you can grab a box and it's full of diamonds or something. If we could do that, plus be able to like take gear off of people, and maybe even sell their ships, like there could be a really interesting gameplay loop right there.
Oh yeah.
Just to go there and try to steal something, encounter somebody, have to kill them or talk through it because you can use voice over IP.
Oh yeah.
That'd be awesome. So
You
yeah,
excited for .12? There's a lot of like
I am excited. Yeah.
interesting updates for that. I know this is obviously a Star Citizen podcast, but I figured it would kind of
Yeah.
go wherever our conversation went.
No, yeah, that's totally fine. I I'm looking forward to the next patch of Tarkov, and in fact, I'll probably get back into it. I did one Tarkov video on my channel, and it was about Star Citizen. Didn't get a lot of attention, but I did enjoy making it. I
All
do
right.
really like Tarkov.
Yeah. I agree with you
I,
completely. I think Tarkov's like brutality
mm-hmm.
and hardcoreness is something that can make Star Citizen amazing. I mean, I've commented that I would love Tarkov's insurance system to be Star Citizen's insurance system,
Right.
where basically if the item is stolen off of your ship or taken off of your ship once it's been blown up, or if it was destroyed, maybe, then that item would not be able to be claimed again. Your ship always you would
Yeah.
get the hull back, but any upgrades that you did, if someone said, "Ooh, I like that," then you're not constantly like duping items, basically, which is what the insurance system sort of does. Is your ship stolen, and then you dupe another one? It's a little weird. So they say
Yeah.
that the NPCs can't break the or you can't break the economy, but in some way, shape, or form, I feel like uh, that may break the economy in the game. The ship, maybe person like I guess the aftermarket ship sale economy, like if you're selling ships from player to player, possibly. But yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know,
Yeah.
but
So,
I think Tarkov can really, or Star Citizen can learn from Tarkov a lot as well.
but
Uh,
it's not just about. Here's how I look at it. It's not just about what you can do in Tarkov. Let's look at it in a more analytical way. Let's look at it on an emotional level, and I think
yeah,
that you can discover a lot by
yes,
just through that examination. What Tarkov does so successfully is establish something that for you to do and a real danger,
heart
um,
pounding
a real
moment.
danger factor, right? Heart pounding moments. Nothing, even though you're going to the same map over and over again, the experience is never the same because somebody could be in a different area, the different skill levels, what have you. So bringing it back to Star Citizen, the hardcore survival aspect of Tarkov, I think, is what's so compelling about that. If I were to break it down to its one core thing, and I think that's what's great about Star Citizen, and that's why a lot of Tarkov players find interest in Star Citizen because it does have this hardcore survival aspect to it. It's not fully formed yet, but you can see it, right?
Yeah,
You go out, whatever's on your person, when you die, you lose. You can go back and pick it up, sure, but you've effectively lost it. And if they picked it up and walked away with it, well, you're kind of just screwed. And that's actually very compelling because what it does is it creates a much more realistic and interesting mindset when it comes to the way you play the game.
yep,
You're not just going out there willy nilly trolling people with your Hello Kitty ship. You're very carefully making decisions because you know there are actual consequences to what you do. And I think that that is exactly what Star Citizen needs to be, and it should never feel 100% safe. And
yeah,
I think I love that about Tarkov. I love that about EVE Online, even like even in high sec, you know, you could still get ganked. I love there's that level of danger always present because it makes those moments of safety, like having your own home or something, your own defensible area, feel so much more compelling
and you want
somehow.
it more. Like
Yeah,
it,
you want it more, right?
yeah, like to
Exactly.
have that. You want your safe space to be your safe space, and you want to love it and make it your own. And that's one of the exciting things of Tarkov point 1 2 is that there's going to be this hideout thing, and maybe that's going to be interesting. But as far as like Star Citizen goes, is that I agree with you 100%. Is going out into the world, even in and they definitely are stating that they kind of like that idea. Is that armistice zones are going to be gone completely, and you're going to get whether you're at ArcCorp or an outpost, the risks are essentially the same. It's just the risk that the person who is potentially going to hurt you or kill you or whatever, their risk may be higher in other places of getting caught, getting killed as well, captured, whatever. But
Mhm.
the the risk is always there, and that's what I like, and that's one of the things that drew me to Star Citizen was and I'll maybe get your thoughts on this as well, is the idea of the death of a spaceman, right? Is
I love it.
obviously you have respawns still, but
Hmm.
the idea of, if I live a risky life, I might not live a long one, and um, the the idea that you want your character to persist for a while, I would imagine, and you want to gain reputation and grow and build up that character, and when it dies, it's going to be a moment, a sad one or an angry one or just any sort of emotion it'll create. And I think that's what we go to video games for. Is a lot of our lives are probably relatively mundane, and video
Hmm.
games can provide the types of emotions that we don't get in our everyday life. You know, and
Yeah, exactly.
Star
But
Citizen
but
seems to create those emotions more than other games, whether it's the visuals or the development process or whatever. At least that's for me. I don't know how it is for you.
absolutely. I'm with you on this one. I and I want to just go further and say, there should never be any safe zones in Star Citizen anywhere you go.
I agree.
I want it to be where, if you're a bad guy and you've done some bad stuff, you've gone and killed players and thought you were going to get away with it, that a bounty hunter could at any time walk up to you in ArcCorp and kill you, and rightfully so, because, the UEE has given him permission to
Mhm.
basically kill you anywhere you are. And I think that would be awesome to just be able to, and to be that bounty hunter at this, on the flip side, would be incredibly entertaining to try to figure out how to get a very clever criminal player in a spot where you can take them out, or maybe even take them down without killing them to turn them in for more money, perhaps.
Yeah,
So that is such a cool idea, and I really hope that they stick to that concept and really bring it to fruition in the future update.
absolutely. Yeah, or future updates in going forward. But I guess where I want to go next is
Hmm.
maybe I sort of asked this, so I might not. But I guess, where do you see Star Citizen a year from now? Where do you
Man, I hope
see
I
where do
see.
you see it? Where do you see your content? Where do you see the community? Are we,
Well,
like, you've been around long enough to have been here where the next year is going to be the best year, right?
yeah,
And it
yeah.
really isn't. So, what do you think? What do you think about this coming year from your,
I
like,
think
more analytical
yeah.
perspective, right?
I'm definitely a bit more wary of saying this is going to be the best year ever for
Yeah,
anything. So what I'm looking for are specific things, and that's elements of what we've already talked about, which is gameplay loops.
yeah,
So I'm starting to see that in 3.7. I think that's really important, and I think that's going to make it a better experience for Star Citizen. I think it's very important that we get to that point next year, because really pretty ships are great for making money, but if you don't have people like us making content on the game because there's no content loop, then that's going to be a problem for CIG to shore up more interest in the game.
yeah.
We need to have, and this isn't where I see it next year. I don't know where I see Star Citizen, but where I hope to see Star Citizen next year is at least a few solid gameplay loops that can keep us active in the game for some time, and maybe, hopefully, some money slash ship persistence. That means whatever's in your inventory, like they talked about on Friday.
That'll
I'd
be
love to
really
see that next
interesting.
year.
Yeah. I I wonder if he didn't seem like he knew if he could say it or not.
Yeah, he seemed like he was looking at other people, and while he was saying it, thinking, "Shit, should I be able to say this? Should I say this?"
Yeah, because a lot of the
It was
time
kind
when
of funny.
yeah,
Yeah,
because when you hear, like, a Lando say it, or
yeah,
one of the producers, or Chris, it's because they've talked about what they're comfortable saying, and that didn't seem like that situation. So it was like, did they have a meeting about it and they're thinking about doing it, or is this actually a plan in 3.7, 3.8 potentially? And because if Chris mentions it, Orlando mentions it, 99% of the time, it's something that they plan to do and they're like teasing it. But if uh, what was his name? I know his last name is McKinney. Chad McKinney says it, then it's a totally different story where it was like, this might have just been like a meeting that they had for like 5 minutes. And it's something that they're considering doing, you know? They definitely said that they're considering putting efforts into it happening, but I can't think of a thing in the game that matters more than that. Can you?
Well, aside from that, I would definitely say getting more people in a server, because that unlocks certain other things that can happen. So for example, if they were to get in organizations, some sort of territory, and then more people, you could have territory battles. So I think server-side OCS performance, these are really important things that we also need to see aside from gameplay loops, because gameplay loops are very, very important, but you also need to be able to get in the game and enjoy it smoothly without running into too many issues with latency or weird problems with the physics grid where ships are falling, or like ships are falling through ships and stuff like we have right now.
Yeah.
So that needs to be fixed too, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, gameplay loops are definitely a number one, at least in the short term. I think the game is at a point where if we had some solid gameplay loops, they wouldn't be too detrimentally affected by some of the more annoying bugs we have today.
Agreed.
But and a very close second, server-side OCS, server meshing, gotta have it as soon as possible.
Yeah, I agree. Like the idea, I mean, it just obviously my thoughts on the matter, but the idea of being able to get in the game and actually enjoy the game and not having to create your own game within the game is something that I've been looking forward to for a very, very long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and before we move on, the one thing that I didn't quite think about, so if there's anyone that's actually in the caller queue, we have a little bit of an issue that I didn't really think, and we don't have any, so that's a good thing, is that as you can see, when I move around, Morph goes away. So because we're using Morph on Discord instead of another program that I no longer use, bringing callers in is really complicated because we can't use video and be in a big group Discord call. I would have to bring in a person, so it's a little bit more complicated, because then they have to be your friend and all that other stuff. Discord complicates that, unfortunately. So what I'd like to do here, and it will actually probably be a little bit better, is to take questions from the audience on Twitch. So if there's anything that you guys want to ask, and we'll continue our conversation for a couple minutes, use the bracket question, and maybe at SaltEMike would be a little bit better as well. We'll take some questions that way, because I really didn't think about this too much, and then maybe I can have the mods like copy and paste some good ones back to me. So there you go. Just like Morphologist put in there, question at SaltEMike. Here's my question. So it's really easy to pick out, and then we can get some probably really interesting stuff to ask Morph. Like we had the question from IDD earlier.
I think there was somebody who actually asked a question about reviewing. Tosin actually asked a question.
All right.
So if we're going to start doing this right now, I can go ahead and tackle that one right away. He asked, would you consider making videos on concept chips, and how would you approach it? It would be interesting what the final product takes into consideration. I think it's an interesting question to ask.
Yeah.
Because knowing that CG does watch my videos, it may somewhat affect what they're going to do, but at the same time, it's really hard to review a concept chip because there's almost nothing there, right? I have to kind of make things.
That's the point.
I can't experience. Yeah.
That's the point of the concept chip and they know it, is that it's all about what you create in your head about the ship, and that's why you want to buy it.
Right. So what I could do is, if I were to make a video like that, I'm not saying I won't. What I could do is I could talk about what's my ideal version of this kind of ship and how does it feel. And what sort of spaces does that create? That'd be a very difficult video to do, but I'm open to it. There are still a lot of videos or a lot of ships I haven't actually reviewed yet in Star Citizen, like the Reclaimer, which is a really popular
I was going to ask
request. So I need to
what's
get
the
that
next
done.
one?
Yeah, I might do the Reclaimer next, or I might do a. I've been really kind of tossing the idea back and forth about doing a Doug DeMuro parody of like a small ship, because there's really so little to talk about. But we'll see what I do next.
The what is the Drake, the information runner? So it's so
The
tiny, but
Herald.
there's the Herald, but there's so much going on there. I mean, I'm curious.
Yeah,
I'd be curious about a Carrack. Have you ever done the Carrack?
I haven't done the Carrack because it's not out yet, but I do have the
No,
internal
not the
model.
Carrack. I'm so sorry. The Caterpillar.
The Caterpillar. No, I haven't done the Caterpillar.
The
No, but I could
Caterpillar
do
would
that one
interest
too,
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's honestly, that's my favorite ship in the game currently that's flyable. And it's because of the spaces that are inside of it. They make so much sense to me, and it creates these I don't know, it creates emotions and thoughts in my mind about how I would use the ship, where there's a space where it seems like the people who work in the cargo area would live, and then the flight crew. And they seem very separated, and it's one of the ships that everything makes and flows perfectly for me. And
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to see that from you, and
I
what
would
your
love
thoughts
to
are.
take a look. So I've stayed away from doing that sort of ship because they're a lot harder to do. And I'll tell you why. Because they're utilitarian design. And when you talk about utilitarian design,
Mm-hmm.
utilitarian only applies to what is seen as utility based on the universe's rules around you. But that's different for Star Citizen. So if I say that thing's too small, well, no, in this future part of the world, this future part of humanity, we can have a generator this small. So how can I be very like critical of it, right? So it's a little bit more difficult to review. But so what I did do is I did do a ship where it is a utilitarian design. That's the Constellation. And I looked at it as from the perspective is, does it successfully accomplish what it sets out to do, to create a very economical looking ship that's very, very bare bones? Is the language successful? How's the organization of spaces? So from that perspective, I think I can do it. Just going to take a little bit more time. Maybe I'll do the Caterpillar next.
Yeah. I just the way the spaces flow together, it makes tons of sense to me, and it seems that obviously function over form big time, and it just works. So, and that's why it's my favorite. But yeah, like I don't get excited about the ships like the 890 jump. I always think from the perspective of how to make as much money as possible, as efficiently as possible, with having as much fun with my friends as possible. And I think that's like a really good one. But all right, we have another question here. So it's from IDD. He says, kind of a reverse question. Was there a ship where you could take away inspiration for yourself?
Haha. Let me think. That's a great question. I think believe it or not, that there are great moments in the 890 where with what they do with lighting. I think that their lighting strategies are on par with the best in the business for the real world. And that's probably because they don't have a real world budget. You can't do a curved light in a wall and not expect to pay like $3,000-4,000 US to do it.
Yeah.
So I think the lighting is beautiful in the 890, and so I guess I would look to that as very inspiring, actually. Especially the main hallway when you walk in. I did this beautiful shot where I was just focusing on the lights, and I shifted the focal point to trying to emphasize how these lights are this continuous design. It's just gorgeous.
And then we have another one. This one's kind of funny. It's from Night Clerk, and it's, in real life architecture, do you deal with the rule of cool like the developers do in Star Citizen? I've seen some architecture that the rule of cool is definitely in there.
I definitely think there are definitely designs that you would classify as in vogue, and that's what people want.
Cantilevers.
For my work at,
right.
we we tend to stay away from that and at my firm, but I'm not saying that architects don't do that. They definitely do.
Yeah.
Definitely do.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch any like of those really high-end architecture shows or whatever, which I'm obsessed with, there's always just ridiculous rule of cool type things that are in a lot of those homes and buildings and stuff like that. Cantilevers are definitely one of them that are just like, it doesn't, I mean, maybe you can add more to this, but to me, they don't make much sense other than creating this crazy cool looking visual in a lot of cases.
Right. So I think it's only valuable if it's doing something really important for the person who's using it. So, for example, if the cantilever is suspending itself off a cliff or suspending itself over a piece of like a lake or a river or something,
It better
that's more
create a
compelling
visual.
because it's creating a place where you can stand and be that you couldn't possibly be without the architecture. So it's enabling this very interesting and beautiful experience.
Gotcha.
So from that perspective, I think it works. But if you're just doing it because it looks cool and there's like it's just a cantilever and then there's a grass field, that's stupid. I don't know why you'd be doing that. That's pointless.
What
That's
about
just
like
doing it
like
to do
New
it.
York apartment buildings where they're like offset a lot with cantilevers? It doesn't seem like it does anything other than creating a, like, when you're looking at it from a more macro perspective, that it's just different than every other building on the New York skyline.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I personally like architecture that has reason behind it, that's trying to say something other than look at me, I'm cool, I've got this cool texture.
Yeah.
But hey man, some people like to design architecture as objects and it works in some cases. That to me is just um kind of egotistic design. And I like to try to stay away with that. If I want the architecture to enable something for the user, I want it to do something good for them, to enable some experience that they've never had before. And maybe, if possible, to say something about the surroundings that's really important. Like we did a project that was right next to a temple, and we utilized a lot of the basic design language. We deconstructed it and we made it into a new design language. And if you look at it, you can tell there's something very Taiwanese about it, but it's not a copy of a traditional building. And I think that's a great approach. So you respect the tradition, but you do something new with it and look at it in a different way. I think that's a really great experience and way to look at architecture.
What many people may not know who they are, or and I probably wouldn't either, but in case they do, what architects inspired you, and what would you say your personal design would be? Personal design style.
Wow. I think Renzo Piano, Frank Lloyd Wright.
Frank Lloyd Wright was me.
To some extent, I've been inspired by Thomas Getty. I think his work is really, really interesting. I love what he does with floor plans. Mostly, though, by a lot of Japanese architects. Actually, Sana is not a name of an architect; it's the name of a collaborative firm. And then there's also trying to think of the name. I can't believe it's escaping me. Shigeru Ban, Toyo Ito, Tado Ando. Who else? There's Toshihito Yokochi is also really inspiring. He does a lot of good stuff with wood. I'm sure you guys don't know who I'm talking about, but these are all really great architects. And if you guys have probably walked in some of these people's buildings already in your life. Some of these guys are so famous. They're so well known that their architecture is literally everywhere. So, I mean, Frank Lloyd Wright is probably my number one inspiration. He's built over 800 projects around the world.
He's
so you can find
what made me interested in architecture, and why we even started communicating with each other. You and I was like when I really started talking to you about becoming an architect. I think that's where at least where I thought we started making some sort of a connection and became friends. obviously through the Star Citizen community as well. But I think when we really spoke to each other as humans, it was about that subject. And when I took my architecture class in college, it didn't excite me at first, and then we got to Frank Lloyd Wright, and I was obsessed, and have been ever since.
I'm glad you're so into architecture now too.
Yeah.
I like seeing people get more into it after I do these videos, because that's really inspiring to me. I want people to really care about the environment around them. Architects design the built environment, and if you just let it happen without any perspective on what's bad, then you get a lot of bad architects building bad stuff.
Yeah.
So okay, I just want to, these aren't questions here, but I want to speak to a few things that people have said.
Okay.
Tosin says a real architect would have answered that all of them are inspiring. Absolutely not. I completely disagree with the perspectives of Zaha Hadid and
I was gonna
Frank
mention
Gehry.
that one. Zaha Hadid, I feel
love
like their buildings are amazing.
Zaha Hadid makes beautiful buildings. I just don't. I disagree with her approach to design because she designs the same sort of building everywhere. Or she did. I'm sorry, she passed away, and I have immense respect for what she did. I just disagree with her approach to design, because she makes these buildings that really look like spaceships, and those are appropriate in some settings, but definitely not appropriate in all settings. For example, she designed the 2020 Olympic Stadium, which oddly enough won the competition for that building in Japan, and part of the project called for removing a part of the Meiji Shrine, and people freaked out over it, and rightly so, because that was very ignorant of the importance of culture in that country. So that was a really bad idea to do that. But her designs are beautiful in the fact that she's pushing. We need architects like her to push the envelope of what's possible with materials, with spaces. What's the next design language? And I think that that's what's really great about her. I just don't agree with her approach to it. Yeah. Frank Gehry, if I were to choose between Frank Gehry and Zaha Hadid, I would definitely choose Zaha Hadid, because Frank Gehry literally crumples up paper, throws it on the table, and says to the engineers, figure out how to make that into steel. And I absolutely hate that approach to design. His designs can be beautiful, but they all look kind of the same to me. So
I've never seen. I may have seen his buildings, but
you've seen his buildings.
Oh,
you have seen his buildings. Okay. Why don't you show people on stream if you're
I did. I just show Zaha Hadid.
I know. I'm looking at your stream, but
I'm doing the best I can, because I'm still, like, ever since I changed the streaming PC, I'm finding that I don't have the same functionality, or at least haven't built the same functionality that I had before yet. So I don't have the ability to just bring it up and have us on the screen together. So this is some of Frank Gehry's. I feel like we've all seen the Walt Disney Concert Hall before.
That lighting is definitely an installation. That wasn't him. He designed the facade of it. This is all the stuff he does. He literally generates these from like crumples of paper. He crumples paper in different ways to try to figure out how it should be. The thing is that this is a big issue in architecture that I see, where people design architecture as objects. So essentially you can think of it as a city building a Hermes bag to carry around with them. It's like a status symbol of wealth. And that's never not always a good thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Can you look at that building and tell where it is? Like if I said, "Hey, where is this building built?" and you didn't actually, like, you've never been there before, so you had to guess. Could you figure it out? I doubt you could.
Only by Walt Disney you would guess it's Florida, but that'd be it.
So that's a big problem with it.
Yeah.
So do you mind if I jump in here? There's a bunch of new questions.
No, go for it. Yeah, I have some old ones too that we may have missed. But one of them was, are you thinking about reviewing landing zones, planetary objects? You kind of already have. So just check out your old videos. But
landing zones?
Yeah, I mean, you did Hurston.
I did Hurston, but I still got to do wider Hurston and wider ArcCorp. So definitely going to come back and revisit those.
Okay.
At some point.
And then this one that you may have missed before we jump into new ones. Do you have to deal with all the feng shui stuff from your clients in the United States? Because the person who's asking is Paul Killa. He's from China.
I see that question, but it doesn't say in the United States.
Well, I think he says here, and I think he means the United States by that.
If you mean the United States, no. In Taiwan, absolutely yes. You can't do stuff that's against feng shui that the client will absolutely hate it. You absolutely have to pay attention to
Because
that.
you work in Taiwan as well, right?
Yeah, I work in Taiwan, so every building we make, we have to pay attention to feng shui.
Okay. And then let's see. Oh, I'm way ahead now. So you can probably jump in and get any of the ones that you've seen that I missed.
So, Exoneer asks, is it early to say how much base building mechanics will have, but how much freedom or creativity are you hoping for as a with that feature as an architect? Obviously, I'd love to be able to design everything, but the reality is they're probably going to be prefabricated modules. What I do hope for is the ability to arrange those modules in any way we see fit, for
Yeah.
them to be relatively small, to give us more flexibility in how big they can be. And I'm being realistic here, so try to understand that. Like I said, I would design everything if I could, and then be able to like do different partitions and decorations in the interior. I think that's the most we could really hope for.
Yeah, I mean, prefab homes, and I'll try and bring up an image on screen if I can be pretty cool.
They can be pretty cool.
I can't have them in Florida because of hurricanes, but they can be really cool. I don't know where this one is exactly, but I think it's on the West Coast somewhere. But yeah, I mean, the building set that we have now is all we really have to go off of, right? At this point, and it's just not that exciting. What do you think about the current building set? Well, we don't have a building set, but assuming that what they're building outposts with now would be maybe the tier 0 implementation of what we could build with in the future. We're making assumptions here, but the outpost that we have now is what we would be building with in the future.
Right. Well, what I'm hoping for, if that's going to be the case, is a little bit more warmth. I'm thinking more TNG as opposed to Firefly, I guess, with some of the modules.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to be able to get two different kinds. Maybe I can get a more TNG version that's a little bit warmer and nicer, like a nice living room.
Yep.
And then if I really wanted to have a dirty outpost that was selling stuff like drugs or something, that I can get maybe one of the cheaper ones that we've seen already in the verse. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. I want different design languages, I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you can find what fits your personal preference.
I see one from IDD again. You mentioned that Hurston is quite confusing to navigate. Is it the layout, or does it need more distinct differences between the areas, and how would you fix it?
So I think definitely the layout is an issue with the way all the paths wind, and it doesn't seem to make sense. So in the real world, we understand objects around us in certain basic forms. Like you understand a building is like a cube. You understand that it's got different sides, and you can navigate around it. In the city, in the city of Hurston, nothing really has a specific form, so it's more like caves. So it's really hard to figure out where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Making the different spaces very distinct could work. I think that might help, but I also think that wayfinding is really important. What wayfinding is like not just being able to, it's basically breaking down how to understand how you go through space without being told. So for example, a wayfinding device would be a clock tower in the center of town. No matter where you are in town, you can see that clock tower and you know exactly where you are relative to it. So those sorts of devices I think would be very helpful.
Yeah, and may not be possible because of the things that we discussed earlier.
Yeah, may not be possible.
Yeah.
So there are some right now, like we don't know what DirectX 11 or 12 is going to enable when they switch to the newer API. Hopefully they get a little bit more with the budget to be able to pull that stuff off.
Yeah. And then I see one from Togar. He says, what do you think about the buildings that are beautiful and functional, but ignore stuff like how the facade reflects the light during the day? Blinding drivers, melting plastic parts of parked cars. I don't know.
Honestly, I think that you're talking about the walkie-talkie tower in London. That building was just, I think it looks horrible. It was designed from a principle of adding more space from a smaller footprint. So the whole premise of it was bad. And it ended up melting cars because the outside of it's convex. So it focused light into parts of the street and literally melted cars. And could have potentially started stuff on fire. That's just bad architecture, in my opinion. Designing purely for getting the most money out of it. that's not even architecture. It's just like a builder doing it. So yeah, it's called the Walkie Talkie Tower. You can look it up, guys. It's really funny. It literally melted cars.
That's awesome. I mean, not really, but yeah, that's crazy. And by the way, Puck Hill is Taiwanese, so I messed that up, and he's yelling at me in Twitch chat. So I apologize.
Oh, he's Taiwanese.
Yeah.
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe you get lunch one day when you go there, because I know you visit, right? Yeah. I don't know. I don't see any other questions. Oh, here's one. What is your exact work in architecture, design, landscape, interior, or with construction?
I work in architecture, architectural design. We do landscaping as well. Not a specialization, but it's part of architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Interior design is always part of architecture. Construction is always also part of architecture. We have to understand how the building is built. And actually, my family's background is a construction company, so I have a better understanding than my peers in general about the construction side of things and what they have to go through with stuff like tile application and mastic and all the stuff they need. Because I've actually had to do it myself when I was a kid. I worked in my family business, putting up tile, cutting wood for putting in trim inside residential homes. So it's been helpful as in my career to be able to understand the other side of it. You know, the people who actually have to make drawings into reality.
Yeah. It's helpful as an adult too. I want to redo my bathroom and I don't know how to tile, so I have to learn. But the I was gonna ask a question. Oh, well, I guess I was gonna make more of a statement. Was when I look at architecture, what excites me about it, and you mentioned like the interior is architecture, like it's part of it. It's the exterior and the interior. I've always just looked. I almost never, when I look at architecture and it gives me whatever emotions that it gives me, it's always about the exterior or how the exterior integrates with the landscape around it. And when I watch or look at images about architecture and the interior, it almost creates no emotion for me unless it is a space that is highlighting the exterior. Am I weird? I don't know. I am weird, so you don't have to answer that question.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you're weird. It's an interesting look in architecture. I think as an architect, our perspective should always be to consider everything as equally important. In the design, everything should fit together and work. But more importantly, it should always consider the human being and their experience and how they see things.
Yeah.
So, but it's not an invalid perspective. It's just not the perspective that I use to design stuff.
I also like really minimalist stuff. So the interiors are usually pretty bare anyway, right? So maybe that's why it's not.
Minimalism is extremely deceptive. So real minimalism. Okay, there's two types of minimalism. There's one minimalism where people don't understand it and they think it's a way to cheap out and not spend any money on the design.
Yeah,
so that's just really crappy.
Like tiny houses, kind of.
So then there's the real minimalism where they understand that what it is that the space is not necessarily overly designed, but everything that is designed is incredibly intentional, very well detailed, and extremely well crafted, going from the overall design from the architect down to the very fine details of how things are assembled. So there's an example that I like to turn to. See if I could find it. Suzuki Museum in Kanazawa in Kanazawa. If you could search for me the Suzuki Museum in Kanazawa, can I see on the stream?
Yeah, it's coming up right now. God, it's so hard to get full images with Google search sometimes. Let's go copy image address instead. There we go. And then we'll bring it up. Is that it? You should see it in a second.
Yep, that's it. So this is a museum designed for I'll have to look up this is Taniguchi. Taniguchi is my favorite Japanese architect. The reason why this is brilliant is because even though it's very simple, if you go up and look at the details, everything from the tiles to the wall panels, everything lines up perfectly. Like that entire wall right there, you look on the left, it's panelized. Every tile gap lines up absolutely perfectly with the wall, with the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And even those tiles you see in the water line up with everything. There's nothing that doesn't like line up with something. It's just absolute perfection and detail. And that's how you do minimalism right. Because if you remove all of the really obvious details, that means that the really small details have to be paid attention to, because if you made a mistake, it's going to be really ugly and obvious.
Mm,
So that's minimalist design done perfectly. Taniguchi is one of the most accomplished architects in Japan.
cool. I'm learning lots of stuff, and I can appreciate it more just from this short conversation. All right, I'll take like one or two more questions. And Neuter says, have you been avoiding talking about UI and HUD design on purpose? Your Connie Phoenix video avoided talking about it, talking about the poor bridge layout of the Connie, like screens blocking the co-pilots.
The UI of the Connie, I think the whole ship needs a rework, man.
Me
I
too.
like the way it looks on the outside, but like
Interior
it's
is
got a
rough.
really cool vibe to it. But the vibe, yeah, the interior is just kind of like hap. It's kind of left over, but that kind of goes to how they used to design ships, right? Because what they were doing is they were concepting the outside of the ship and then filling it in on
Yeah.
the inside. They talked about this. Now they're doing it a different way, which is actually how architects do it. We design, remember, guys, we design spaces and then we design the thing that goes around it. What they were doing is they were designing the thing that goes around it and then figuring out the spaces. And that's a very backwards way of doing things.
Yeah.
So that's why we get the weird leftover interior space. So yeah, I hope they fix it.
All right, and then have you thought about making designs or anything for Star Citizen ships, whether that be suggestions or just for the fun of it? I mean, you kind of have with the 890, right?
I did. I did an architect redesigns instead of reviews. The
600,
600i,
not the 890.
yeah, the 600i. Yeah, I did a redesign video where I redesigned the center module for the 600i touring, because I thought it was just kind of lackluster. So,
And we'll take this one last question. Morphologist, do you agree that we need some form of map/augmented reality added to the player UI in Star Citizen? Can you say what's important for that from your approach?
oh wow, loaded question. Short answer, yes, absolutely. We need a rework. A long answer is I think that it's really important to have a map or some sort of UI that can help us understand the world around us, because it helps us it helps us understand the scale of things around us, but also more importantly helps us find things and actually start to create things like boundaries and where we should go. I don't know if this is making sense, but it's really, really important. We need to have a map that tells us where we are, to do things as simple as let's meet here at this time. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Well, all right. I think we'll kind of leave it there. Sorry for not being a true answer the call this week. It just didn't cross my mind that I wouldn't be using a certain program. So I apologize for that, everybody that would have thought about calling in or anything like that, and just anybody that watches and not having it be a true answer the call. But I guess we'll leave with this. Morph, you have anything coming up in the future that you're excited about? Anything you want to share? Obviously, Morph started streaming on Saturdays on twitch.tv/Morphologist, so make sure you do go ahead and check that out besides his YouTube channel. But anything else that you got going on that you want to share with anybody?
Man, after the 890 jump video,
Taking a break?
I don't have anything specific. Yeah, well, I probably need a little bit of a break, but I don't have anything specific. But definitely, I want to start streaming more and get more involved with the community. It's been a lot of fun, a completely different experience than YouTube, and I'm really enjoying it actually. So,
okay. Morph also is that? I guess I'll ask you off stream. I don't know. With the Instagram, was that personal that you want me to look at, or was that something that you want me to share with everybody?
don't share the name because I'm a little bit afraid, but you can show the picture. So if you can pop up, if you want to show somebody was asking what
I will
the work
not
is that
be
we've done in the
able
real
to.
world.
Yeah, I'm afraid that I will not be able to show the pictures without the name. I'm just because like I said, I'm in a whole new space, so I'm afraid that I might like dock something. Maybe next time.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
I'll do this. I have a better idea. I'll do this, and I wouldn't be. I should be good. And I'm also, yeah, the name's everywhere. Can you full screen on Instagram? I'm a boomer.
I don't think you can. It's stuck like in a narrow view, but if you scroll down and just crop out everything else and just show the
Okay.
pictures in the middle
There we
without
go.
zooming in or anything, don't click on any images because it'll show the name. Just
Yes.
show the main page and cut out the tops and bottoms.
I got you.
Sorry, guys, I just gotta be careful. I've told people before, but I'm just a little bit worried that someone's gonna message my office and try to mess things up, and I don't want to get stuff too muddled here. So my fellow Taiwanese guy here probably has seen that building on the top because that's actually in Taiwan. That's the tower I designed with the friend. I was the guy who did most of the work on that because that was my baby. That's actually why I started working for this firm, was to design this building. They're all movable translucent panels, and they change basically their orientation depending on the sun's direction throughout the day.
Oh,
So
awesome.
the whole facade actually moves. It's being built right now, which is really cool.
Sick. And when you design a building like that, how integrated are you into the actual building process? Are you more getting updates from the US, or do you have to go there really often to make sure things are looking and coming out as expected?
Oh, this is from the Taiwanese firm. So this is like if there's something being built, I can just go check it out.
Okay.
But if there's stuff going in the US, yeah, I have to fly back every so often and check it out. It does not melt cars. Ciao. that Nike
really cool.
one's really cool. That was before my time, but that one actually what that is a screen. Like basically it's just a chain link fence. So we find these really clever ways of doing really cool looking stuff on a budget. Those are basically like those balls you get in ball pits stuck between a chain link fence. That's what that is. Isn't that cool?
That's really
it's
cool.
It's a tennis ball factory, actually.
Okay.
For Nike. Isn't that, yeah.
A tennis ball factory with that level of design is so funny. It's so just a factory.
Well, they would just have this stupid corrugated steel on the outside and just be hideous, but it's like this really busy area. So they wanted to design a facade that wasn't hideous. They wanted to look like a nice place because there's like parks and people around there.
Okay.
So this is the result of the design.
That's awesome.
The one in the middle, I'm really proud of. I did that rendering and a lot of work on that design. Actually, both of them. The one on the right's called the JJ House. That's the white building with like the swooping openings. The idea was we wanted to create a fabric-like facade out of a partially translucent material. It's like a PVC pipe attached to an armature to shade from like very harsh solar gain in Taiwan. And the one on the left is for a very wealthy client in the mountains in Taiwan. So yeah, those are both. I love both those projects.
These on the top.
Your screen's a little bit shifted, but it's gonna be in the middle there. The middle.
Okay.
Yeah, that one and the one on the right. Because all the ones on the left side are cut off, but it's all right.
Yeah, they're asking me to click, but guys, I can't click on anything because this is kind of an Instagram account that we don't really want shared out on the internet. So sorry, guys. But yeah. Can you tell Mike how hard it's working in architecture so he doesn't keep dreaming about how cool it is? Me and Morph actually had this conversation, so don't worry.
Yeah, man.
So to kind of tie everything together here, and let me get off the Instagram and bring Morph back on. To tie everything together and like long story basically is when I went to college, the last class I took was an architecture class, and that's when I found out what I wanted to do in my life. And then I became, because, you know, you got to make money, I became a poker dealer, and I've been doing that for 11 years. And I really only wanted to do it for one, and I was going to go back to school, but the money was very good. Poker was booming. It was great. So long story short, I'm still a poker dealer. But about a year ago, I decided that I don't want to be one anymore. So let's start doing my dream of architecture. And Morph kind of helped teach me what the process would be to become one, and that it's a little bit probably too far out of my reach at this point, based on my age and time constraints and all sorts of things like that. That it wouldn't make sense for me. And I obviously came to that decision myself with the information that Morph kind of provided to me from his experiences and schooling and all those things. So
I feel kind of bad. I hope I didn't like kill your desire to do design, because
you didn't kill my desire to do it. You just I needed some real world answers, and not have the dreamy I'm gonna be Zaha Hadid one day.
Somebody,
you know,
Steve said, "Wait, Morphologist killed your dream." Now I feel so bad.
No, you didn't. You just I asked for a real world answer, and I got real world answers about what it would take and what the realistic salary would be. Being someone by the time I finished school, being 40 years old, working in an entry level position, it'd be ridiculous. So, like,
Yeah,
you know, you understand the architecture business, and I needed to know those answers, and I got them. Dreams crushed, boys.
Yeah. Hey, man, it's this glamour, and I want to say this now for anybody who's thinking about getting architecture. You got to be passionate and love to do it, because if you're not, you're going to be sorely disappointed by how much you actually get paid and how much of the design, how much time you're actually spending doing design. A lot of it's a lot of really boring stuff, trying to fit stuff within code, dealing with a finicky client who keeps changing their mind one day to another, going back and forth and back and forth. Sometimes you just want to wring their neck.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, it's not as glamorous as it looks, but we do try hard to make it look glamorous.
Yeah, but all right, I guess we'll leave it there. Morph, you got some ideas for future architect reviews. I really want to see that caterpillar. I'm gonna push for it. But yeah, I really appreciate you being on. I appreciate, for our short time being friends, I appreciate the things that you've added to my life. So I just want to say thank you, because the conversations that we've had have been really, really informative. For those of you guys that don't know, obviously I've started working on my YouTube channel a lot more. Morph just on his own, sat there and listened to my questions and gave me really good advice, and I think he's a big reason why I'm working harder on my YouTube channel, although I haven't listened to the advice, some of the advice that you've given yet, because I think it's maybe a little bit too difficult for what I'm capable of or whatever right now. But I've heard it, and I want to implement some things that we've talked about, and I want to talk about more in the future for sure. But I just want to say thank you, man. I appreciate it. You're a really cool dude.
And actually, I really appreciate it. It's been my pleasure, and actually a lot of fun to stick around and talk to so many people in chat today.
Yeah.
I loved all your questions, guys. Thank you. And thank you, of course, Mike, for having me on. One last thing. Once you're done and you shut the stream off, I know you usually have to go and do something on Sunday, but I wanted to tell you one thing I found out just recently about YouTube that you really got to know.
All right.
That I think will help you out. So
one thing about YouTube you really got to know. That's the thumbnail.
About making videos. It has to do with the last video I made. I tested something with my last video with the way I edited stuff to see if it would have a positive effect.
Okay.
And it worked. So I want to tell you about it. Hopefully it'll help you out, and probably actually help you out with streaming and ATC. So
awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna go do that in private chat. So we will talk to you guys later. And
industry secrets.
Yes, and I might have a guest next week as well for Answer the Call. And I think it's a good time. These are good times to have guests when the actual Star Citizen content doesn't create these really great discussion topics that we like to have on the show. So goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Morph, thank you for being a guest, and I'm looking forward to your future call-ins and having you on as a guest, maybe with a more solid topic one day that we can really hammer home for like an hour. It'd be cool. So Thank you again, and I will catch all of you guys next time. Bye, everybody.